Building rapport and working well with a remote boss is something that many of us are going to have to contemplate in our roles. Many of you are already working with a remote boss, and in the future, it's going to be much more common that you will support an executive who is on the road constantly or lives and works in a different location. So, how can you build an effective relationship? To make an assistant and an executive partnership successful, there needs to be rapport. You have to work well together. And that's hard to create when you see each other every day, let alone when you don't see each other every day and you're not in the same location. So how do you build rapport with make a partnership with a remote boss? I have a fantastic panelist today who is going to talk to us about how they build their relationship with their boss and how they work together, considering they don't see each other very often. So I want to introduce you to Matthew Want, and we have got a few questions for Matthew today. So hello, Matthew, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Nikki, thanks for having me.
If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and letting us know a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So as Nikki said, I'm Matthew Want. I'm currently Executive Assistant to Lucy Brazier. I've worked with Lucy now for 7 years on a daily basis. I plan a lot of her travel. That's one of my main roles. She's done about 140 events this year or something mad like that. So it's a pretty hectic schedule trying to get her from place to place.
I can imagine. And you have a one-on-one role with Lucy, don't you? She doesn't have any other EA support. You are the one that arranges all of that travel with her.
Yeah, that's me. I arrange it all. So everything from start to finish at every event, it's me arranging it. So yeah, just me.
Fantastic. So I want to talk to you first about how you have built your relationship with Lucy. I know you said you've worked together for 7 years now. So if we can take you back to the beginning, how did you start to build rapport with Lucy? Were you seeing each other on a regular basis, or was it mostly done over Skype and things like that? How did you start to build that relationship?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, I've worked with Lucy now for 7 years, and before I started working for Lucy, we actually worked together in our local Chamber of Commerce. And funnily enough, I was the secretary on the Chamber of Commerce, and so was Lucy. So we worked quite closely together. When we started working on the Chamber of Commerce, we did a big Christmas event together, and that was for about 8,000 people. So it was quite a big event that we organised between us. There were a team of other people, but it was predominantly me and Lucy who worked together. So that was a great way to start to build the relationship, start to build the trust and the rapport, so she could see what I was capable of, and I could see what worked for Lucy and necessarily doesn't work for Lucy. I think over time, as the role has advanced, as you said, I see Lucy maybe once every couple of months, depending on what she's traveling or where she's traveling. Constant communication is key. Without that, we wouldn't have the relationship that we do. I keep in contact with her on WhatsApp at least a couple of times a day, depending on what's going on with an event. If she's on stage all day, if there's anything urgent, I let her know. But it's just keeping in contact, making sure that she knows that just because we're several thousand miles away, I'm doing what I need to do, and making sure that trust is there throughout.
Absolutely. And do you find that that's key in the role? When you don't see each other that often, you must have thought to yourself, I need to make sure that she knows that I'm always going to be around if she needs me. So was that a conscious decision that you made to start with, or is it something that you've learned over time?
I think it's something I've learned over time. I think it's at first when Lucy started traveling a couple of years ago, there's a lot of travel, but not as much as there was now. And a lot of it was UK based. So we're on the same time zone. So it wasn't as challenging, I would say, at times. Now that Lucy travels all around the world, for example, a couple of months ago, she was in New Zealand and Australia, and that's a 12-hour time difference. So you do have to learn to be available when needed. It's not just a 9 to 5 job anymore. It's literally a 24/7, and especially with a mobile phone or whatever, you are available all the time now. There's, as bad as it might say, there's no way out of it. You are on call 24/7.
Yeah. So do you work in her time zones, or have you got a sort of plan in place where she knows this is when I'm asleep and this is when I'm awake, but I'll be there when I'm awake again? Or do you switch to her times?
Yeah, I mean, normally I work the UK hours, which are about 8 a.m. till 5, 6 p.m., whatever it works at. But if there's an event, I'll probably switch off, but have my phone on me in the evenings if there's anything urgent, so she can contact me. I tend to stay away from emails in the evening, so I switch off at whatever time it is. Unless there's something urgent, then I'll jump back on. It's just good to have that balance as well, because it's so easy to just, especially when you're working from home, you've got to, for me personally, and I still find it difficult sometimes, learn to separate the home life and the work life. And at the moment, I don't have an office at home. We've only been in our house a year, so I either work in the front room or one of the other rooms. So technically, that I'm in my office all the time. So it is tough learning to switch off.
Yeah, that's a whole other panel session
Yeah.
on how you managed to do that. If we could go back to how you work together, so can you give us an example of where you've thought to yourself, okay, I've done something here that has really pushed our relationship forward and led to there being more trust in the relationship between you two? I know Lucy has got some great examples of when you've done that, but I know you're a little bit more humble. So great examples of when you've done it. That would be good.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the first year when Lucy travelled, when I first became her assistant full time, we're going back 3, 4 years ago now. She went to, oh, how many countries was it? 20 or 30 within a year. And I think we worked it out, it was about 200 days of events or something like that. And it wasn't until the end of the year that I went to an event, and someone came up to me and they said, "Oh, you must be good at travel then." And I thought, "Yeah, I must be good." And I think having that skill, and as you said, as assistants, we're not very humble to ourselves. And I think learning that as well is a key skill. And I think Lucy appreciates that I don't go bragging, I don't take it for advantage or anything like that. I think we've got that relationship where she knows that if I've done something right, I know I've done it right, but I don't brag about it. And on the other hand, if I've done something wrong, I'll own up to my mistakes and we'll talk about it and we'll get past it.
Yeah, that's the best way to be. And as you said, that builds trust in itself, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
if you're able just to go, yep, I've made that mistake, I won't do it again, which can happen quite a lot when you're organising that much travel. There's so many moving parts. You know, it's difficult to get it 100% right all the time, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, definitely. A couple of months ago, when we had events, executive secretary live events in Sydney and Wellington, and I was at the forefront of planning there. I was doing Lucy's travel, and I think in the time, the build up, say from about May, June-ish time, we had the events in middle of July. She travelled to, I want to say, 6 or 7 different countries during that time, which was about 10 or 12 events. So balancing doing the organising of the travel and the live events was such a mammoth task. And a couple of bits did go wrong. I will admit they did go wrong, but I learned from my mistakes, and you just have to deal with what's happened and try and make it as easy for Lucy as possible and learn not to do them again.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've not, I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first EA executive job that you've had, so to speak, where it's this kind of full-on one-to-one role. Am I right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. So before I worked with Lucy, I worked in a garden centre. So I'd never done the secretary, executive assistant sort of thing before. So this is the first one. Yeah, completely different career change, but I'm so glad I went with it. I absolutely love it.
I bet. And I know what's amazing about your role is that you work with and you get so much value from the actual job itself, in that you are surrounded by other executive assistants. So because you train them and that's part of the job. So what I was wondering was, from your experience with being around so many other EAs, what do you think the differences are between your role, where you are based at home with the executive who travels quite a bit, with a more, I guess, traditional role where EAs are in the office and their boss is next door or on the same set of desks? What do you think the differences are, and what skills do you think that you have to use more often than maybe the EAs who are close by to their executives?
No, it's a really good question. And I think one of the main things that I find is I probably do I'm not saying assistants who are in offices don't get as much work done, but I find that I probably get a lot more done because I'm not distracted throughout the day by other people. It's great to be able to just sit there and just get stuff done. And obviously I'm in communication with Lucy and the team throughout the day, but it's great not to have people come up to me. And when I go and meet up with Lucy or other people, I do sometimes find it difficult because I'm used to being on my own, which I guess is a good thing and a bad thing in a way. And it's something that if we ever move to an office or something like that, I will need to get used to. Um, I think, as I mentioned before, communication, obviously, if you've got your boss there, you can easily walk into their office. Well, I say easily. You can walk into their office and speak to them, whereas sometimes it's harder to get hold of Lucy or the rest of the team, depending on what time zone we're on. So if you need something urgently, it can be a bit more of a challenge to get that sorted than if you were in an office. You could go straight to the person, ask the question, get it done, whereas sometimes it can prolong what needs to be done as well.
So for assistants who work with remote bosses or bosses who travel a lot, how do you overcome that challenge? Is it technology? Is it persistence? What do you find is the best way to deal with that?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's also, I've worked with Lucy now for so long now that I know the way to contact her. I know that if, for example, she's on stage all day, if I need something from her, WhatsApp might not be the best way because she doesn't necessarily look at it. So what I tend to do is, unless it's something really urgent, I'll put a list together of things called what I need from you. So it'll put together, I don't know, 4 or 5 things, whatever there is in the day that I need from Lucy. So send them an email and they're there because I know she's always on her emails when she's at events, unless she's speaking. So it's the quickest way to get a response. We also have an email system that I've set up with Lucy. So it's different folders, again, depending on the urgency of what's come in. So that's something I'm happy to talk a bit more about.
Yeah, please do.
If you'd like
Yeah.
to. Sure.
Yeah.
So we have a 5-folder system. So I'm just going to say them in order. So today, I put stuff into today which is urgent. So that could be people who maybe are chasing for outstanding invoices, who need an answer today. It could be something that needs proofreading, things like this, something that needs to be done today. We also have this week, which are things that aren't as urgent, but do need to be checked within the next week or so. And when it becomes time for me to move them up, I then move them from this week to today. We have an FYI folder. So if something comes into Lucy's inbox that I think she needs to know, but she doesn't necessarily need the action, I'll then put it into the FYI folder. So she can look through there and she thinks, oh, I'd like to go back to that one. I can go back to that one. But again, it's not necessarily things she has to deal with, but I think she would like to see that will help with what she's doing. We then have a dealt with folder. So when things have been dealt with, whether they come into Lucy's inbox and I deal with them or Lucy's dealt with them, we then put them into the dealt with inbox or the dealt with folder. We then have the delete folder. So Lucy probably gets about 600 or so emails a day. And as I'm sure you know, a lot of that can be spam.
Yeah.
So I filter through each time they come in or every so often. And if it's stuff that I think is not relevant at all, I'll just put it into the folder and it's forgotten about. Again, Lucy checks through that every now and again, just in case there's something I might have missed, or you know how it is when you've got so many emails in your inbox, sometimes you accidentally click on something and move it to the wrong folder. So we use that system, and she knows that when she goes into her phone, maybe after an event or something, or however she accesses her emails, she can look into their folders and see exactly what she needs to do.
Fantastic. That in itself just sounds like that would save you so much time. And again, that builds the trust, doesn't it? Because she's given you that flexibility to deal with her emails, which so many executives really struggle to delegate. Just having a system in place would really help with that and just build that trust, and she can go and check if she needs to. That sounds like that works really well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's when I took over Lucy's emails, however many years ago it was, I think there was around 50,000 unread emails in her inbox.
That must have just been like, ding, ding, ding. There's a job I can do here.
It was a bit of a, how can I put it? I went through probably about 5 or 10,000 of them and cleared them into folders. And then eventually with Lucy, I sat down and said, look, it's going to take me weeks to do this. Can we just put them all in a folder? And if in the nicest possible way someone wants to contact us, they can come back to us. So we put them all in a folder called Past Help. And they sat there since. And again, if anyone needed anything from us, they've come back to us again since. And then we just started the process again.
That's amazing. And I bet she just sort of said to you, you can stay. If you've done this for me, that's enough for now. Great job.
Yeah, definitely. It was a challenge, but it was a great skill to learn as well, knowing what needed to go where and prioritizing not necessarily what you think might be important, but what you think is important to your boss as well. I think that's key when it comes to an email system. You know, for example, I might see something come in that I think, oh, that's really important, and you might think, I need to look at that for X amount of weeks. So it's great knowing that balance and knowing what works well for both of you.
Definitely. And that takes time, doesn't it? You've been in the role for quite a while now. That's not something that an EA could necessarily do within the first few weeks of working in the role. It comes with just having that awareness of the business, and that develops over time.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that, as you say, it takes time and it takes trust. I think it's something that I did spend a few years. We worked together in an office with a few of us for a couple of years. So we kind of built that rapport and what we both, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So using that going forward in when we're working remotely still works to this day. And it doesn't mean it's perfect. You know, there's always things that change, you know, but we know the basics and we know where to progress. If we've got any questions with each other, we're available and we can just make it work.
Brilliant. Let's move on to communication, because as you said, and I completely agree, it's the fundamental thing that makes relationships work with executive assistants and their executives. But when you don't necessarily see your executive every day or they work remotely, it's the most important thing. So I wondered if you could just talk to us a little bit about the communication strategies that you've put in place so that you're both working effectively together.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned before, we keep in contact on WhatsApp pretty much every day when Lucy's traveling. Even today, she's had to go off. She's had a family emergency, so she's had to go off today. But I'm still in contact with her on WhatsApp. And if anything urgent comes in, I'll just ping her a line and let her know, because I know when she's in the UK, normally WhatsApp is the easiest way to get a hold of her. I think a lot has changed, obviously, when it comes to communication and things like that. Say 5 years ago, you didn't necessarily have iMessage or WhatsApp or things like that. So it used to be emails or normal text message. And sometimes, as you know, with signal and connection and things like that, necessarily the best way. Even when Lucy's on a plane now, I get emails from her, which, yeah, it is nice, but yeah, it does show that 24/7, wherever you are now, you are available. And I guess it's kind of, it's great to have, but in a way it's also a curse. And it's knowing those boundaries and it's putting those boundaries in place with your boss as well. Like I say, me and Lucy have agreed that, you know, weekends, come Friday, I normally finish about 5:30. You know, in the evenings in the week, I'm happy to work later. That's absolutely fine. But Friday, about 5:30 latest, I like to switch off for the weekend. You know, I just like to have that time for me, so you can switch off for everything, see the family, and it's a great communication. I mean, if there's something at the weekend and Lucy was at an event and she needed something, it doesn't mean I ignore her, but it's just good
Just
to
on
know
the
those
whole.
boundaries. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you can message now on aeroplanes, isn't it? When I was an EA, that was my amazing. They can't contact me. I've got like 4, 5, maybe 12 hours of just peace, but that's not the case anymore.
No, it's not. It's everywhere. It's on trains and even on buses and stuff. I was in the States a couple of months ago, and they even had it on buses and the tubes and things like that. You just literally cannot get away with it. You can see how it becomes addictive as well for some people.
Definitely. Let's go back to when I was an EA, and this is a question that I wanted to ask you, because again, a lot of assistants, when they work in an office and they have remote bosses, their colleagues will quite often say things like, oh, you must be so quiet now that your boss is traveling. And I remember thinking, no, this is when I'm at my busiest. Is that the same for you? And how do you manage that when your executive is working away all the time?
Yeah, I think there's no real quiet time. I think it's literally there is a 24/7 thing. I don't think there's because we run events as well, and it's a great time when Lucy's away to catch up with other stuff as well. You know,
Mm.
sometimes when you're sitting there with your boss, you don't necessarily get round to the things you want to do because, as I mentioned, you get distracted by other things. You get people coming up to you saying, "Can you just?" or "Please, could you?" And as assistants, I'm sure you know how it is. You can't really. you want to say no, but you can't say no.
People pleasers. We're people pleasers.
Right, yeah, exactly. And you find at the end of the day, you've got this plate full of stuff from other people and you haven't actually done what's on your to-do list. So I think it's great to have that time when Lucy's at an event or something like that to catch up with what I need to do and also prepare what she needs to do and what needs to be done for Lucy. So when she comes back from an event, she's not running around going, oh, I need to do this, this, and this. Just making it nice and easy so she can just slide back into it and get on with it when the time comes.
So do you guys have, obviously something I preach a lot on Practically Perfect PA is regular one-to-ones with your executive. When she's not an event, not speaking, and she's on the ground, is that when you tend to have a catch-up? Do you have catch-ups, or does everything tend to be via email, or is there sort of can you get each other for, say, like half an hour to catch up on things?
Yeah, no, definitely. I try to make sure we catch up on the phone at least once a week, even if it's for 20 minutes, half an hour. It's normally towards the end of the day, or if something's happened in the day that we need to discuss, we book that time in. As I mentioned before, on WhatsApp, we keep in contact every single day when she's traveling, but when she's not, like I say, even if it's a couple of times a week when I know she's not busy, I will call her or she will call me and we'll go over some bits just to make sure that our ducks are in a row between each other.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I take it that time is so valuable for you both.
Definitely, especially when Lucy's traveling so much. There's some things that I've had on lists for weeks just because I haven't had the time to sit down. And as you know, there's some stuff that you can't necessarily solve or work out over email or text. It needs to be done speaking to someone or in person. So this stuff is crucial to make sure you get done when Lucy has the time to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I want to touch on travel because as we've sort of said earlier, and as I said, you must just be an absolute expert on this. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time picking your brains and any advice that you can give to assistants who book a lot of travel. Is there sort of a few tips that you can give that are just work really well for you?
Yeah, I think definitely work out what your boss wants. Lucy has a preferred airline and likes an aisle seat each time and things like that. So even if I've got a pack that I put together years ago that I still use, which has Lucy's frequent flyer number, what airline she prefers, passport number, all that sort of stuff. So having it all in one place is great to have. It's making sure you sit down with your boss to see what they want, because we've had flights before where companies have booked them for Lucy and she's been given a middle seat on an airline that we've never heard of. And, you know, this is her time to sit there and digest what she needs to do. And as I mentioned before, with Wi-Fi on planes now, it's a great way to catch up with stuff. You've got no distractions around you. So making sure your boss is comfortable when they're flying is something key. One thing when coming to travel, make sure you're prepared for any obstacles or outcomes. Now, when I say that, a couple of things that I mean are jabs, so injections and things like that. When Lucy went to Papua New Guinea a few years ago, we didn't realize how many jabs that she would need. And that's not something that we'd looked up properly. And I just started working with Lucy full time as a PA, and I think I've been working with her for about 6 months. And I think it was about 6 or 7 jabs that she needed over about 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of jabs. I think it was like rabies, typhoid, all sorts of, and because of the doses, you can't have them all at once.
Yeah.
So she had to go back for 3 installments. And for example, yellow fever was one that she was critical she had done, or she might not have been let in the country. So making sure you have that available and is done in time, because I think it's 4 to 6 weeks, I think it was, that you had to be done before to go into your system. So just make sure you check beforehand. And this stuff can be accessed on the internet. There's through the NHS websites. It's all free. You can go on there and find out what you need. So it's a great tool to have that I still use. Luckily, Lucy doesn't go to many countries now where she needs different jabs. She's had a lot of the jabs, and they normally last for about 10 years. Also, visas.
Yeah.
Visas are, how can I put it, my nightmare. I just a quick story. Lucy was going to go to Ghana a few years ago, and it was with a big company out in Ghana, sorry, who were planning this event, and we had to get a visa done. Or yeah, so it was in Ghana, and so we had to go up to the London embassy. So I had to go up there, fill out all the paperwork, sit with Lucy, go through it all. No problem, absolutely fine. So I got up there for 9, 10 o'clock, whatever time it was they opened. Sat there, took a ticket, like I was at the deli counter, sat there waiting for about half an hour with all the paperwork, got there, got up to the desk. Sorry, you don't have this piece of paperwork. Can you come back later? So I was like, okay, all right. So luckily there was a hotel around the corner, which we'd been to before. So I went there and got the stuff printed and came back. Anyway, little did I realise when I got back there, it was about midday. They'd gone for lunch for an hour. Yeah, so I then had to sit somewhere across the street for an hour and then come back later. So I got there, went through the queue again. They said, oh no, this isn't filled out correctly.
God.
So I said, okay, well, why didn't you tell me that earlier? And I don't know if you did many visas during your time as an assistant, but some of the embassies are helpful sometimes when you go there. So it was then about 4 o'clock and they were closing. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to go back. I've been to the embassy like 2-3 times that day. I'm going to have to go back and then just come back up another day. So sit back on the train, finally on the final train back home, look at my email, and surprise, surprise, we have an email from this event saying that they've cancelled it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So after all that, we didn't actually need the visa, but yeah.
That's so annoying.
It is. It's just, you couldn't make this stuff up. And it's a great story to tell people, you know, it's always check the websites and always check what they need. And even sometimes when you go there, there's stuff that they tell you that you need that you didn't know. And this is something that with the networks we have now, it's great. I often post on LinkedIn if I can't find the information on our LinkedIn group. I post on there to say, look, I'm doing a visa for so-and-so country. I haven't done one before. Please advise what I need. And 9 out of 10 times, you'll find someone who's either done the visa or who's based in that country who can help you with the application process.
Absolutely. And that, again, having a network, it must just be worth its weight in gold. When you are remote and you don't have any other assistance around you, it's great that you have that network.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's a godsend. It's a lifesaver. It's great to have that network to go to. And luckily enough, I've built up that network with the events we go to over the years. And it's great wherever we go in the world, we do have someone there we can reach out to. And as you said, networks are key, especially now, and you can access them as well 24/7.
Yeah, definitely. I had one boss who I just started working with, and she said to me, the lady that was working for me as an EA just before you didn't organise my visa to go to Moscow. And when I got there, I just got moved off into a different direction and had to wait in a holding room or cell, as she referred to it. And she said, so if you don't do that, you'll be fine. Well, that's good. Someone else has massively messed up before me, so I should have a bit of an easy ride now.
Oh, wow. So how did they deal with it?
Could you imagine she just forgot to do a visa for Russia? It's one of the worst places to not have a visa. She had to go home. She was waiting in the holding cell. She didn't have the visa. The EA, who probably wasn't the best at her job, couldn't organise an emergency one. So my boss had to just get on the next plane back to London.
Yeah, that is, Matt. We've had it before with Lucy where she's got there and they can't necessarily find something on the system, and it has been done, and it's the time it takes, and especially if you're there to catch a flight or something like that, and especially with Brexit coming up, if it goes ahead, that's something that we're going to have to look at. Spain a lot and does a lot of events in Europe, so that's something that's new territory for both of us because we don't know how that's going to affect getting into these countries and how it's going to work.
It's high pressure when you work with a boss who travels as much as Lucy does, because half the time it's not even in your control, is it? You can have done everything perfectly, planned the trip perfectly, and then there's delays, or as you said, something political happens in a country and you've got no control over it whatsoever. Your level of sort of how you deal with pressure must be so finely tuned by now, I would imagine. You can take anything in your stride.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people in the industry say I've got a calming personality. I mean, my wife probably wouldn't say so, but apparently I've got a calming personality. It's something I've learned to build up over the years. You know, at first I used to get really stressed by these sort of things, but then I soon learned that there's no point getting stressed because in the nicest possible way, something you can't fix it. If a flight's going to be delayed, you can't go there and tell them to bring it back to the normal time. And I think one thing that's really great with Lucy is if a flight's delayed or something like that, she understands it's not my fault. You know, I've spoken to assistants before. I spoke to an assistant a few weeks ago who said that her boss was on a train and the signal cut out on the phone. And her boss came back into the office and had a go at her because the signal cut out. And you think, yeah, and I just joked, oh, yeah, of course, because you cut out the signal, didn't you? You know, it's just, I think it's having that level with your boss that things happen. You can't stop Mother Nature. If there's going to be a storm or there's going to be something that's going to delay a flight, or maybe there's a war in a country that's come up, or political, as you said, you can't stop this stuff. It's going to happen, and you just got to make sure you're there to sort out the situation as best you can.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's where the rapport building comes in, doesn't it? Because that's when you both can sort of laugh about it, and then you just go back to your job of organising something else and dealing with it so that they're okay. And as you said, that comes with building a relationship and building rapport and working with a boss who understands you can't do everything.
No, definitely. As you say, it's about having that rapport and that trust. Lucy knows that if she comes to me and says, right, my flight's delayed, I'm going to be, I don't know, 20 minutes late to so-and-so, can you message them and say I'm going to be late? She knows I'll do it. I'll get straight onto them and I'll say, look, Lucy's stuck wherever it may be, running late. Can you just push the taxi back, or she'll be flying in at whatever time? So she knows that, again, going back to mobile phones with WhatsApp, she can contact me, whether it's in the evening, the morning, whatever it is. And I can just message the people and just get it sorted. A prime example was a few months ago when Lucy was in New Zealand. I believe she was in Auckland and she was going to Wellington. And she'd just done an event in Auckland. She got on the plane and she realised she'd left her laptop charger at the event. And obviously at this point, she couldn't go back and get it. So I jumped on, contacted people we knew in Wellington. Within about half an hour, they got her a laptop charger. So when she landed in Wellington, the charger was there. She could get to the hotel and just get on with her work.
That's amazing. And as you said, I want to talk to you about some of the skills that you use the most, because you need to be really fine-tuned in the skills that you have when you work with a boss who travels as much as Lucy does and is remote. So networking clearly is a key skill that you have. And as you said, your job fits so well with that because you've got such a huge network of EAs that you can call upon. So networking must be a huge skill that you have. And I would also say it always strikes me that you're incredibly proactive. And I've always said if you work with a remote boss, and actually really in general, being proactive as an assistant is just really key. So how have you developed that skill?
Yeah, so as you said, being proactive is something definitely that I look at, especially working Lucy. She's on the go, as you know, Lucy, 24/7. Actually, just a new idea comes on her head and that's it. So at the moment, we're starting to plan for events up to June 2020. So it's looking ahead and seeing what's coming up. So we've got obviously a few events left this year. And then it's looking at what's coming up next year and planning for that, knowing that if we need visas or anything like that, if we need to start to get flights arranged, if we need to, when Lucy does Administrative Professionals Week in the States, she's normally there for about a week to 2 weeks, and she does anything from 10 to 12 events. And they can all be in different states. So it's making sure that you plan it and looking ahead, thinking, right, I don't want to book an event in on, say, Tuesday in Las Vegas and then book something on the Wednesday in Washington, D.C., because that just won't work. You've got to make sure that it's planned. So it's easy for Lucy as well. So she's not burning herself out. As you mentioned, networking is a key skill. Whenever I go to an event, I make sure I try and speak to everyone, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know when you might need that person. And there's always people who have skills that you don't have, and you have skills that they don't have. So it's great to build up that rapport with people out there. So if the day comes and you do need to contact them, they are available.
Yeah, absolutely. What other skills do you think assistants in general should think about at the moment, if they're not necessarily working with a remote boss? As I said in the introduction, they will be at some point. Executives are just traveling so much more now, and there are so many jobs on the market where they're looking for EAs that are home-based or VAs potentially in the future. So what skills do you think assistants should think about now, getting some training on or looking at developing in the next few years?
I think some of the main skills are probably technology. I think working remotely, as I've mentioned several times throughout this, your phone or your iPad or your laptop, whatever it is there with you all the time. And if you don't know how to use them, then you're not going to be able to keep in contact with your boss and make sure your boss needs what he or she needs. I think there's so many new pieces of software. You've obviously got OneNote, SharePoint, all sorts on your laptop and X amount. I mean, there's so many. I think we used to use a piece of software. I apologize, I can't remember the name of it, but we used to use a piece of software on our phone that we put all the flight details into. So Lucy had it available. I always print out a pack for Lucy, but just in case the phone did, I mean, one time she was in Brazil and her phone got stolen. And luckily I'd printed out copies of her passport and things like that. So she had it available. So when it came to the police needing a record and things like that, she had that available there to give them. Because if she didn't have that, then she wouldn't have been able to do the report or anything like that. So being prepared for every outcome as well. I know that's not necessarily a training course as such. It's something you train yourself and you learn to adapt with. I think being prepared for every outcome is something, as we mentioned before, there may be a time when your boss goes to the airport and the flight is delayed or cancelled. You've got to be ready to be on hand to work out, right, how can I get my boss from A to B, because they need to be there. There's no way around it.
Yeah, definitely. It's that kind of creative thinking skill, isn't it, that just comes in, that is going to come in so much more to play in the next few years, because you said people are going to be working remotely, things happen all the time. It's just learning to be creative and solve those problems, and just thinking fast on your feet, which I think, as you said, isn't necessarily a training course for it, but it's knowing your boss and knowing the business inside out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think being proactive is something that can help you to work out these sort of things. So you think, say, for example, you're going to a country that has just had a political change. You can look at it and think, right, Lucy can't go there because it's not safe at the moment or something like that. So just looking ahead, not sending your boss to one of these countries and they get there and they think, why am I here? I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. It's just knowing. And also cultural differences is a big thing. Lucy went to Papua New Guinea a few years ago. I hadn't looked, and we didn't realize that when we were there at the closing ceremony, Lucy was given gifts by the hosts. And I think to an extent we were expected to give gifts back.
You just because you can't be there with your boss when they're traveling. I know you go a lot, but you can't be there all the time. It's just making them feel comfortable. And again, when you with yourself, you work with a female boss as well, so that there's safety issues as well to take into consideration, as much as anything else.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even one thing I've started doing over the last few years is wherever Lucy's going in the world, I always the emergency contact number. So, for example, in the UK, it's 999. Because in the nice possible way, if we didn't have Google, I wouldn't know who to contact.
That's a brilliant tip. That's
Yeah.
a brilliant tip. Yeah.
I always make sure Lucy has that, because if something does happen, God forbid, and she's lost her paperwork and everything else or whatever, she knows what number to call. Because it's, if you're in a country and you don't know where you are, you don't necessarily know the people, and something happens, you could be lost. And if you can't reach other people, you need that number there to be able to access it, to contact them in case of an emergency.
Yeah, definitely. I say that all the time because I live in Barcelona, and I say to people, do you know what the emergency number is here? And a lot of people don't know. It's, you just, oh yeah, that's right, I don't know it. It's not 999 or 911. It's something different. Yeah, that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of everything that I have in my questions for you. It's such an honour to speak with you, because, as I said, you must be one of the hardest working executive assistants that I know, because of just how busy Lucy is. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and I know that our attendees are going to get a lot of tips from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.